So the deputy director at the Long Beach Museum was a vandal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Just doing a show alone was like easily over 10K. Shipping and everything else, installation, the opening, flying the artists out, whatever expenses were in there. So it was at least $10,000 per show. I enjoyed providing the platform. I did not enjoy the sales aspect of it. You know, like that grind and that hustle was just like, it was brutal.
Museum life, is that like the retirement?
Exactly. We would like take down all their artwork and then put up our own artwork in our house, whatever, and like throw these like art shows like at our parents' house, and like that was like kind of how we first started, like, and invite all our friends over and have these like art parties.
Can I ask you a dumb question about Snoop Dogg? Is there like a bad part of LBC?
Kind of the way I go about with the exhibitions, that their, you know, sole purpose is to educate the community. Okay. So yeah, they're there to educate and to like benefit the city and the Long Beach community at large.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I am Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Paul Loya. He is Deputy Director of
Exhibitions and Collections.
Yeah. It's just was worried about getting the order right. Cool, man. So you are like you right now. You have a show up called Ordinary People, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, we put that. It just opened up 2 weeks ago on October 6th, and it's put together of 6 community first led organizations as guest curators in the space at the museum. So Slanguage with Mario Ibarra Jr. and Carla Diaz from Wilmington, Crenshaw Dairy Mart, Dalek Studios with Ozzy Juarez and 10 of those artists, Ambos Projects, QUA, which is a Ukrainian LGBTQ organization, and People's Pottery Project.
Pottery Project.
Yeah, so they do ceramics that help support formerly incarcerated women, trans and non-binary.
So then there's like is it a benefit as well? Are you guys raising funds with the art? No, it's just to give visibility.
To give visibility, correct. Yeah, I was reading Angela Davis's book Freedom is a Constant Struggle, and reading that, she was speaking about the systemic issue of individualism within our society, and us like focusing on soul individuals as these heroic people that uplift, that are the sole focus of these movements. And I was thinking about that and not focusing on the community aspect of that, with the domestic workers Black domestic workers who rode the bus every day in that, and gave Martin Luther like the platform that he, was able to lead the civil rights movement with. And thinking about that about the context of institutions and the way that social exhibitions had come about, after 2020 especially, and how like individual artists were being represented in these institutions and in these shows. And I was like, well, what about like, these organizations that have helped support all these artists along this whole time, and thinking about Slanguage and even residency art, in Inglewood and Crenshaw Dairy Mart and all these, groups that were just doing these amazing things. And I was like, why don't we do a show where we invite them to create exhibitions about their mission at the museum. So anyway, so we created this show about that. Yeah, so it was a great. It took there was different iterations of the show that kind of different forms. And our curatorial team had a lot of meetings about what the show would look like, and really defining which groups would be participate. We only had so much space, in each organization got a gallery, and then there's also these neutral walls that are in the museum, and I wanted those activated so that way there'd be a little bit of interconnectedness and integration within the groups. So that, yeah.
So you were mentioning Slanguage. What? Because I invited Mario. I'm sorry I haven't emailed you. This year got hectic.
Sure.
and it was just easier to do like directly on Instagram.
Yeah.
But he seems like a very busy man, so I didn't want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is Slanguage?
Slanguage is it's an organization in Wilmington. They provide artist residencies, workshops, and for the community educational workshops. And I met Mario back in 2004 or 2005. I was doing a Getty internship when I was in college at 18th Street Art Center, and within that what do you call it? program, you get like a mentor with a bunch of different other interns from around different colleges in Southern California. And Carla Diaz was my mentor person for that group. And and part of that, you'd meet once a month with this group, and then like the mentor would take you around places within LA, cultural sites or other places like that that they got to choose. And Carla and Mario took us to like a bottle shop in Highland Park. I forgot the name of it. And then there was like a muffler shop that they took us to, places that were just not, really like unorthodox type of places but it was fascinating. And they took us to they had a barber shop at the time that was a Slanguage artist in residency program in Chinatown. And they took us there, and the actual residency was the barber chair, and it was a drawing residency.
So you would sit at the chair and draw from that perspective.
Mm-hmm, nice. And then and inside that space was all that what they had on display were pen and ink drawings, on bandanas from incarcerated individuals at the time. So but then the artist would sit in the chair and then activate the chair. And I was working at 18th Street Art Center, which is a traditional artist residency program with where artists would get a traditional white space, to activate. And so coming from that and seeing what Mario and Carlo are doing, just completely,
that's pretty dope.
Yeah, it was like completely just maybe rethink the way that a residency program could be. And I followed Mario. At that time, Mario I think had done a show at LACMA where he had done a installation for the Belmont Tunnel, and it was like this huge plexiglass wall, and he invited other graffiti artists to like activate the space, and really had different than other exhibitions at the time that were happening around Los Angeles. So
I mean, that's interesting. You grew up in LA? Are you originally an Angelino?
I grew up in Long Beach, actually.
In Long Beach. Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit about that scene, because I've had a few people on, but it seems like you've been there a little longer than more than like people that just moved there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up there since forever. I went to elementary school there, and then in college, me and my friends, like, we all lived within that space. Now a lot of them own homes there and stuff. So it's people stay in Long Beach. It's a very it has its own like art scene. I actually when I lived in Long Beach, but I would commute up to Santa Monica and work at art galleries in LA. And so for my entire career, I was doing that, but commuting back to Long Beach because I loved being there, because it was just kind of a step out of LA, But,
and are you an artist in any capacity? Do you have a practice of your own? Or
I did. I went to college for drawing and painting. I went to Biola University, and I got my BFA from there. And then after college, I was doing like me and my friends were doing an artist collective around like Orange County, and I was like helping curate and doing that type of thing. But and then I jumped. Let me backtrack that, because while I was in college, I moved to New York and did a semester through Bethel University in Minnesota. They had like I guess like an offsite campus in New York that they had, where they invited like 12 students from around country, from other private universities, to attend this this program. And in there you did your regular studio practice along with some like art history classes, but essentially it was like Manhattan was your campus. So we'd have art history classes like at the Met and at MoMA and stuff. It was great. But in that you got an internship of whatever you wanted to do. And so I wanted to work in art galleries. And so I worked at Max Protest Gallery in Chelsea.
And this, how did you start in those spaces? Like, was it security? How do you?
No, security. Yeah. No, I was actually, it dates me. I was actually like, my job was like organize slides. So,
okay.
Yeah. So they would I would run to like the photo lab and go pick up the slides like on 23rd Street, and then come back and then like sit there with my box and just like file slides. And so that was my job, but it was great. I fell in love with the art business of it, like at that exact moment. And so when I came back to LA, because there's only like a 9-month program, I came back and I started working for Mark Moore Gallery. And so, and I worked at Bergamot Station, and I interned for him. And then I ended up working there for a few years. So, and that was like while I was in college. And then, and I still had my art practice. Like, after I got out of college, I was doing art shows with this like little collective of us, like post-grad kids. And then, but then I think like in like 2000, and I kept on working in art galleries. Then I think like in 2000, 2007, I decided that I really wanted to open up my own space.
Oh,
And
okay.
I felt like at that time it was kind of weird. Like you had to make a decision whether you're going to be like a dealer or like an artist. Because if you're doing both, then you couldn't really do the fairs, And like
Oh, they won't let you?
and it wasn't they wouldn't let you. It was just kind of like taboo or something.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
it was like you just like
Now people just put their own work in.
Oh,
in shows
totally.
all
No,
the
it's
time.
it's amazing. I think of like Adam Miller like in the Pit, and they really like they were I think they were one of the galleries that kind of really like helped redefine that that notion, and other collectives too. But it was so anyway. So I decided to put and I realized that my talents would be better suited towards providing a platform for artists than it was like making my own work. So, and it was like my own personal decision, and so I just did that. And I
No. I mean, it's admirable. I'm just always curious
Yeah.
about that. I mean, dude, being an artist sucks. If you can get out, get out.
Get out.
No, I totally.
Public service announcement.
You're probably making better money than most of us,
But it was and so I did that, and I worked at Peter Federman Gallery after Mark's Gallery, and then worked there for like 7 or 8 years, and then opened my own space on La Cienega in 2013, and had that space for 5 years, and then closed that down because the rent was like we had a rent.
Wait, so that was near what was like where Laxart and all of those
yeah.
Plum and Post? So did you overlap with them?
Yeah, I was there like while they were.
What was
all
the
there.
space called?
It was this Paul Loya Gallery. It was my.
Oh, I think I've probably been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of tucked away in the back. We had a courtyard.
Okay.
God, the Catherine Cohn. I don't know if you remember her. She had a space in the front, and then and so there's like a tiny space in the back that they had for rent, and the rent was like really cheap at the time. Like I didn't expect to.
I remember.
Yeah, it was like so cheap, and so I got in there at a great time, but then it got. Yeah, I think when I left, my landlord wanted to raise it to like 7,500 or something like that, and I got in like at like 22, and so it was
7,500 a month,
something like that. Yeah, for that space, and it was crazy.
No wonder that whole scene died.
Yeah, it was insane.
That's the thing about the speculative element of like LA, where it's like come, we want to raise all the values, and then once they're raised, people just get kicked out.
And he owned like the landlord owned like the entire street.
Yeah,
so it was just like this one guy who just. So I closed that space down, and then I started working at the museum. Like I just applied to that.
Really?
There, yeah, randomly. But yeah.
Well, I moved to LA around 2008, and that I moved to Culver City specifically because it was right there.
Yeah,
and at the time that seemed to be the spot. It had like K Chung had kind of fallen out of favor. It used to be the big scene, and then apparently, do you know Mario Vasquez?
Yeah,
Mario's Art World.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I would be like, I would feel a little like your cred is a little sus because that dude is everywhere.
He is.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Where'd you move from?
Miami.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like when I left, Miami was, or actually a little after I left, Miami was doing stuff like Gucci Vuitton and those galleries that were like that got sued by. I don't know the details too well. They got a cease and desist.
Yeah, sure they
but
did.
like that tells you a little bit about the Miami.
Yeah. Oh my god.
attitude.
The only time I ever go to Miami is just for Basel. And
Are you going this year? I'm gonna be there.
I don't know.
I mean,
maybe
it's the same as every year.
It is. It's just like we go to Mexico City every year, and that's kind of like the more exciting fair that we go to. It's
Long
nice.
Beach as the museum.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So our director like loves to go down there, and so he's like, let's and we go to Zonamaco and Material. So yeah.
But you guys are a museum, so you're not like in the market in the same way that like a gallery is, right? So how does that? Can you break that down a little bit for me?
Basically, we go and visit the fairs and just to kind of see what's happening and take kind of temperature of what the artists that are out there, and just kind of I take notes as the curator of artists that I see, and then we go visit the museums, and I think that's probably the best part about it, is seeing
Like
what
when you're in Mexico.
when you're in Mexico. Yeah, go see what they have on display. And
Well,
so,
I just meant more broadly. I know we were going
Sure.
off of the Mexico, so sorry for the
yeah.
confusion.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I meant more broadly, like what defines, like what's the difference definition wise? I mean, I have an intuitive sense
Of what?
of
like,
of the difference between a gallery and a museum.
Oh.
But like essentially, like I guess the question would be like the galleries make money through the art market,
right? And we're a nonprofit, and
So you're a nonprofit.
yeah, and the kind of the way I go about with the exhibitions, that their sole purpose is to educate the community. So
Okay.
yeah, they're there to educate and to like benefit the city and the Long Beach community at large. So
Cool.
yeah, so that's kind of like the way I gauge it, and create. And then when I think about exhibitions I'm going to put together, like, okay, like how is this going to benefit the community in any way? So yeah.
I'm really impressed that you had a space in I mean, I'm pretty sure I probably went there. Like I must have, because I would go there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's cool. So then that was more in the gallery realm for you? Like you were hustling the art market. So you've done both.
Yeah, I've done both.
Which would you, or does museum life, is that like the retirement?
Exactly. It's great now.
I love that you didn't get offended.
No, not at all. It's fantastic. No, it's great. I love being able to do my job, provide artists like space, especially in the museum, and helping their careers move along, and showing, educating the community on, works I think are important. But I enjoyed providing the platform. I did not enjoy the sales aspect of it. Like that grind and that hustle was just like, it was brutal.
Yeah.
But,
especially if you like, there's only one artist that I know that is like a killer salesperson.
Sure, yeah.
And she's like, she started her own company. I'm going to try to interview her. So.
Oh, nice.
But she just like, she does the selling, or she acquires pieces for customers, but like,
oh, amazing.
But
like
I'm
an art advisor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
But I love that, how convoluted the way I said it was.
I do this thing. And you're like, oh,
she does this thing. It's so abstract to me as an artist who doesn't think about these things. I'm like so impressed. But so yeah, I mean the whole art world is so interesting in that. But I like the cozy. It's like tenure. It's almost
It really is.
like you don't have to sell.
No, I love that part of being. I love being able to just do my job, provide I feel like I really, like, at the core of it, like what I wanted to do for a living was provide artists a platform. And even like selling, I wasn't a great, when I was working at a gallery, I think I was working at Mark's gallery, I was like, oh crap, like I need to like learn how to sell. And so like part-time, I went and started working at Steve Madden selling women's shoes. So I was like, I got to sell something and figure out what that strategy is.
That's a good move though.
Yeah. So I went and did that for like, I think a year, whatever, and sold women's shoes for a year in South Coast Plaza. Wow. And so that was, so I learned how to do that. And then learning from Mark.
Selling women's shoes is also seems high stress.
Yes, it was
like something they really, really like, and you're a dude.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was fun. It was a fun job in college. So
yeah. Was there like any like punk DIY stuff that you did in Long Beach, or was that scene happening concurrent with what you were doing, and then you went to frequent it? Like I'm trying to get a sense of like Long Beach growing up as a scene, because it seems like I mean, unfortunately, a lot of what I hear on the show is people commuting up to LA, which is a nice thing about Long Beach, because Long Beach is a lot more chill.
Yeah, very much so. And there's not like, I commuted up to LA because and people always ask me like, why don't you open a gallery here? I was like, well, there's not really the market that's in LA. You can't, unless and the rents aren't, the rents are a little bit cheaper, but they're not anything crazy, where you just can do that, where you can like just forego not making sales for an entire month, So I always commuted up to LA. But I'm 42, so I missed like that whole, you
bastard running marathons. Jesus Christ. I was like, no, he's like, he can't be my age.
Well, I started running marathons to like quit smoking and drinking. So
okay.
yeah, I was like, if I'm gonna destroy my body,
You're
I'm gonna
not helping me feel better about like what I'm talking about right now.
Just like put that energy into something else. And so yeah. But no, but it was I missed like that mark of that era of like a real like the punk scene of Long Beach that like I hear about, and all that type of thing. But
so there was one though.
There was one, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, gosh, I think there's a documentary about the Descendants and stuff, and I mean, it was like a whole huge punk scene back in the 80s and stuff.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you're thinking more like punk art related, because I know that in the 70s, I'm literally listening to a thing about the Screamers. I don't know. You know them?
I don't know. I mean, I know
not personally.
Yeah. I know the band. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had never heard of them, but it does seem like it was It's interesting to hear these members be interviewed, because they kept talking about like they said that Beck's father or someone or uncle or somebody was like a fulcrum artist, or or something like that, and like basically like all of their reference points, even though they're a band, were art related, like like really? We were art kids is what they kept saying. And I'm like, so like it seems like just a bunch of dudes or people that were like art school kids were like, you know what, let's make music, and that became their thing.
Yeah, well, I think that's interesting, because I think about like skate culture and DIY, and in the like that was kind of my generation. Was I grew up skateboarding in Long Beach and in that scene, and it's like so many kids came out of skateboarding and became artists and kind of integrated into that, So
and that in the street art show at the Getty, there was like a whole section all about that. And on both coasts too.
Right.
But
But we're working on we're doing in February, we're doing Ed Templeton. Do you know Ed Templeton?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the name.
He's a photographer and painter, but he was a professional skateboarder through the late 80s into like the 90s and then 2000s. But he had started the company Toy Machine. So but when I was like pitching that show to my director, I was like, oh yeah, look, like I had my first issue of Transworld skateboarding from like 6th grade.
So you used to skate?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, oh, look at, like this was my first introduction to like really contemporary art, because Ed had like the pro spotlight, the centerfold. And then in that was like all of his drawings that were on the margins of the pages. Yeah. And so I was like, and then, now those same drawings and paintings are like at like Robert's projects and stuff like that, and so, and then he had just done the cover of GQ Style and with Jonah Hill. And so anyway, it was like the same thing. So it was like to show our director, like, oh yeah, look at, this is like 1996 or whatever, 1995 or whatever year graduated. And then this is like now. And so he's still doing the same thing. But now but he took it to the next level of, continued his passion for art and really like went with it and brought it into the fine art world instead of,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's crazy to live in a time after, like it's hard to imagine a time before like Keith Haring and all of those like really, Basquiat and things where we're like, oh yeah, like Banksy, yawn. I've seen it done before, but it's also Banksy's like is maybe a little bit more heavy-handed.
Right. Yeah.
although Haring was direct. Yeah. But it's interesting. I mean, I think maybe what makes it a little bit, what makes Banksy a little bit more obnoxious is the irony. Because like we might be in a moment where like maybe that was cool at one point, but like I think like it's maybe since like the mid 2000s, right? After that, it was just like whatever. Like I get it.
Yeah, I mean, well, after like that, the I don't know, people like capitalizing on it so much, and then people stripping it off the walls, and it just became, I don't know, it just lost its uniqueness. Became a novelty, and just people,
But it's interesting. It's interesting, like the commodification of that in the first place, right? And then like it being, I guess Banksy would be maybe like this oversaturation of that. Of that idea. Yeah. So did you have a particular topic? I like your kicks, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Those aren't Air Force Ones. What are those?
No, these are what are they? Nike Rochers, but they were like they integrated them into Cortez's.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, yeah. So, but I forgot what year I bought. I collect.
Welcome to Sneaker Talk.
Right? Yeah. I'm not like a sneakerhead, but I buy. My wife always makes fun. She's like, "You buy so many shoes." I'm like, "I like shoes," and
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
just have like a closet full of them. But I'm not like a true like sneakerhead where I'm out there like
No.
sourcing and trying to get the drop and all that kind of stuff.
No,
Like,
no, that's
not-
insane.
yeah.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
Like I also keep it cheap too.
Yeah.
You know, like, but it's nice to have stylish, like,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
really, you know, like, because people don't know, like,
No.
unless you're a sneakerhead, you don't care.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, those sneakers look nice.
Yeah, and I like clean my shoes. So
Yeah, yeah.
every night. So like I've had these for I think over 10 years, whatever. And so
Oh,
I just
no
keep,
shit.
I just keep
Wow.
them nice.
Wow.
So, yeah. But anyways,
So you're
thanks.
not doing any art installing.
No, not these days. But I'll still. With this last exhibition we were like everybody for ordinary people was like hands on deck, like just putting up everything. So it was.
How big is the staff? Is it like?
Well, like our curatorial team is like there's myself and Susie Marquez and Amanda Baker. Susie's our registrar, and then Amanda Baker's are my curatorial assistant, and she also helps with registrar. So like we're a team of like 3 of like our tight, and then our prep crew. So like our curatorial team is probably at max when we have everybody from on call on like probably like maybe 8 to 10.
Oh
So
wow.
it's a small team. So yeah, so it was quite an undertaking to do this show. I really appreciated the team effort to put it all together because
Yeah.
everybody was. I mean, Susie and Amanda, who usually just do all the checklists and art conditioning, were like on the it was like 4:45 and the show opened at 5 and like duct taping wires to the ground, whatever. I was just like, thank you.
Those finishing touches.
Oh my gosh, it was
Yeah.
just like it was like just such a scramble, but it worked out. So
But
yeah.
did you have a topic that you wanted to get into? I know.
Me?
Yeah, I know. I prompted you for one.
No,
I don't want to deny you the opportunity.
No, you're the host.
Oh no! I'm just saying. Sometimes people want to have a specific thing that they've been working on.
No, yeah. I mean, like the Ordinary People show was a great. That's what something I've been working on for the past year, and just I'm really happy that it came together and that people are responding to it, and the way the outcome of it, and I'm working with all those organizations has been phenomenal. So yeah, it's really been an honor to work with all of them. But,
So then, what is your what is your take? Did you go to the new to the Made in LA show?
yes, I did. Yeah.
So what's your take on that show? Yeah, I'm curious because I have some thoughts. I can lead with my thoughts if you want, or do you feel confident?
Well, I don't because I didn't see all of it. I went to opening night and the line to get into I saw one of the galleries and then the next one the line was like around. I think it wrapped all the way around and I was like I literally don't have time to do this the whole thing. I'll come back and then because even going into one of the galleries it was amazing. It was amazing. But what was your take? If you feel comfortable speaking to it.
No. I mean, it's interesting to see it. It kind of one of the things that. Well, it's one of the things that always catches me, or I always forget about it, is that it's not necessarily about people that are from LA, although it does include that. It is a survey of people that. So, it's in that context. It's interesting to see what is not necessarily happening in LA because I think that things are happening outside of the context of that. It's a very figurative show,
Absolutely.
I do know Elmer
Guevara.
Guevara.
Yeah, he's in the Ordinary People show too.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he has a piece in that show.
Yeah, so he was saying that he was pointing out when I talked to him that he's having some success right now because figurative work is kind of coming back, which was an interesting thing to observe because I hadn't really thought about that. I'm obviously not actively in the market, pursuing the sales in the market right now,
right?
Because I'm doing this, but yeah, it is an interesting thing to go see that show and then just get a sense of what's happening, but also feel I had the wall text was kind of rough. There was a lot of a lot of stuff like, you know, like there was phraseology there that I thought was considered cringe like 10 years ago. And someone pointed out that it's probably to make it more accessible,
Right.
which is interesting to think about, because then that means that like people that are like the broad spectrum are just catching on to like the way that people were writing about art like 10 years ago. You know, things like her work stands between the intersection of this and this, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, like I thought we were done with that. Like there's so many other ways of saying that kind of thing. You know. So that was interesting to me too, but I get why it's like that. I get it's like, you know, it's you're not selling, you're educating, so I making it accessible, but
and I agree with that, because even when we create wall text, like for things, like my intention is to be for not just the art community, but for the community abroad, you know, and it's like, and so we try to make it into as accessible within more, I guess, like layman terms, you know, I guess.
Yeah,
you know?
but I think that there's a difference between layman terms and cliches.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah,
I think the intersection of two things, you could say that so many different ways. I'm worried now that I've talked about this before. I'm worried that I've said this on the podcast before, and now I'm just boring people.
No.
But it's interesting. Shows like that are interesting. You know, like shows on that scale, obviously, because they're museum shows and they're, you know, I liked the work there, but it's always kind of like you can, in theory, go to one of those shows one year and just not feel it, just because you're not feeling the vibe of the broader art market, you know, like essentially, which is a weird way to think about it. Instead of being like upset about the cycles of things. Like I remember I went to Art Basel one time and there were like a million drawings of porn.
Oh yeah.
You know, and how those things just kind of get caught up in the zeitgeist, or they start to sell. I don't know. Is it like
there's always like a theme every year. Something, you know, you can always point out like, oh, like what was it, when like a couple years ago?
It's a good thing there was no fairs during COVID,
right? Sorry, but there was like you know, I think one year it was like, I was like, oh, like there's a lot of galleries showing, you know, abstract linear work, you know, and that type of thing. You're like, oh, okay, you know, and so you just kind of you pick up. Or one year it was a lot of fiber works, you know, and so
like,
I
remember that.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, and like every booth had at least like one fiber artist in there, and you're like, this must be a thing, you know, a trend that's happening, and so, but yeah, you know, but I mean, it was good. It was nice to see Long Beach artists in the Made in LA show, like Tita Whitney Leck, who actually were showing. We have two campuses at the museum. We have an Ocean campus, which is the original campus that was built in the house was built in 1912, and then there's like a exhibition hall that was built in 2000, and so that's our Ocean campus. And then downtown, we have a downtown campus on 3rd and Elm, and that was built, or so that opened in 2018. Yeah. So Tita's in that. It will have a solo exhibition in the downtown campus. Oh, nice. So yeah, and then Christopher Suarez.
And downtown is not that far from the ocean either.
It's like 1 mile from the Ocean campus, and then like literally I think it's on 3rd, so it goes 3rd to 1, and then the ocean. So yeah, so it's right there. It's right there. It's amazing, like the proximity to the ocean to like affordable places to live, you know. Like I remember my first apartment in Long Beach, I think, was like on First Street in Gaviota, and it was like one street over, and I was like, oh, there's the bluff and the ocean, and I'm paying this for rent. I'm like, this is crazy. So
well, I think also the beach was maybe more associated with bohemian lifestyles at a certain point, because it wasn't Venice Beach. Like Venice Beach right now is like bougie hippies, but I think I think when Jim Morrison was there, it probably wasn't like fancy.
No, not at all.
I think it was Jim Morrison that was there, but
the Doors were from Venice.
Venice,
yeah. So.
And then, like, I also feel like during the days of White Man Can't Jump, like in the early 90s, Venice was also not that hip. I don't know. That's just my perception as someone from Miami. Because, like, that's one of the things. I'm going to Miami in November, and I'm like, I'm having fantasies of just like blue water, and I forgot, like, it's, you know, I took 10 years before going back the last time, and this time I'm like, you know what, there is something to this.
Yeah.
I just got kind of tired of how hot it was and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like the LA is like LA ocean vibes. It's like iconic, but it's like it's not as satisfying to me as like some of the oceans, like as the East Coast,
Yeah.
you know, like as the Atlantic.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not to diss on
Yeah.
on your home beach resort. But I mean, either way, like people in the Midwest that have art galleries are mad that you have a ocean campus. Right?
I know. Yeah. Right. I know. It's you kind of take it for granted, but it's just like, oh yeah, the ocean's like right there. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
even the museum sits right on the bluff, so it's like my office looks at the ocean, so
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day. So it's kind of it's nice. And as I grew up surfing, and so that's like nice to be right next to the ocean like every day and have that time, you know, and be there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was thinking when you were talking about skating, I was like, that's one of the things about Miami. Like we didn't have any surfing because the waves are bad, and like the skating out here, like you see, like the average skater is much better.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
just
yeah.
because the culture was so much bigger. Whereas I think that like everywhere else, it just kind of trickled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I mean, I think like Southern California was kind of like the epicenter, especially
Yeah,
when I was
yeah.
growing up. Like Huntington Beach was like the space to be at, you know. And I mean, San Francisco too, you know, had its own scene, and then New York had its own scene too. But definitely Southern California was like, you know, well, I mean, that's like kind of where they originated from.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So
And then were you in that in the realm of the vert skaters, or was that
No.
dying? It was already street by the time you got into it,
It
because
was-
we're around the same age.
Yeah,
I just
it was street when there was definitely a you know, there was a divide. Either
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you know, you go to the skate shop, you buy either you're like oh, how much vert does that skate video have versus like how much street does it
Oh,
have?
really?
And
Okay,
it's
so you were
and
right on
they-
that.
Yeah, so like like oh, and then so they would tell us, you know, and
That's
so,
like pre-internet.
yeah, oh yeah, it was like 411, you know, and that was like which was like a video skate magazine, you know, at the time, and we'd buy those, and so that usually had a lot more street skating in it. But yeah, it was definitely more. We did all like we didn't do any vert because I mean having a half pipe around was just not a thing, you know. People, I mean, back in the 80s when I was younger, like kids, you know, guys had like half pipes in their backyard, and I think even I grew up near Lakewood, and so I remember Lakewood had like a skate park too and stuff like that at a time, and then that got destroyed I think in like 83 or 84 or something like that. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Man.
But anyways, yeah.
Wait, but you're 42, so you must have been like what, 3 years old?
yeah, exactly. I
Yeah,
wasn't
so-
around.
yeah.
Now it's like a Fuddruckers. Remember Fuddruckers?
Yeah, that's still around.
No,
Okay.
it's closed now.
Okay,
anyways,
but now
yeah.
it's a closed
It's
Fuddruckers.
yeah, Fuddruckers, the hamburger spot. So now
Yeah,
that's
where they
the-
just used to have like cow
Yeah.
like carcasses. Like, yeah, I think I understand why that shit died.
Right, yeah.
It's like a very 1950s
Oh,
view
yeah.
of like, yeah, look at the meats. Just like
exactly. It was funny, but yeah. So I mean, it was so yeah, we grew up street skating, and so it was fun though. You know, we just would skateboard everywhere and just kind of be a part of that culture. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. So
And then
yeah.
when do you think that like was that your intro into art, like when you started, because that's a pretty big
No.
like, were you a graph artist or
No, not at all. I was just like, I mean, I just drew from like a young age. You know, I was just into
Okay.
drawing. My mom was really the one that like really pushed me into doing art. It's actually when I graduated high school, I wanted to become a cop. Like, because
You have the mustache for it.
Yeah, I guess so. It's the only thing that stuck with me. But that would pass for a cop these days. But no, it was like I was like, well, I didn't want to work behind a desk, and
Yeah,
so and I was like, well, a cop, you're in a car, you're like on the street, you're like or working with people. I could do that. I was like, and then you get to retire early. And then I could like surf for the rest of my life, you know. And that was like
Surfing cop.
That was my
What did
those were the things that made it all work together.
Point Break had a big impact on you.
Oh my god, totally, absolutely. My dad showed me that movie at a young age.
It
So
was impressionable. Yeah, I mean, who the fuck, dude? That movie it was. In
was
fact,
amazing.
That movie was so good that
Yeah.
it started a new franchise, Fast
Yeah.
and the Furious, because it's exactly the same. The first franchise.
Is
Fast
it?
and-
I've never
Yeah.
put those two together. That's amazing.
It's instead of surfing, it's cars.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's so funny.
Literally to
That's
the
right. Yeah,
end,
yeah.
to the end. It's like beat for beat. He gives him a car instead of giving him a surfboard.
Oh my god, that's awesome. So yeah, but and my mom was like, so I even went to Golden West College, which was in Huntington Beach, to go to the police academy.
Oh
And,
wow! So you were like serious
I was like,
about
I'm
this.
gonna do this.
Oh
And
man,
then,
I'm so suspicious of
yeah,
you now.
I know, right? Shady. So, no. Then my mom was
if
like,
you told me you sold drugs, I'd be like, oh yeah, what's up, dude?
but I was like, I took my mom was like, oh, take an art class, then take your criminal law class, and I was like, okay. And I hated my criminal law class. And my teacher was just not great and just mean and kind of a dick, and I was like, this isn't cool. And like,
like a cop,
and it's like I could just see him like just taking his work home with it, him speaking to that, and I was like, there's no way I could do that for the rest of my life. So
you're gonna be traumatized, and while you're surfing, you're gonna be like seeing blood.
It's like gonna totally just ruin everything. So I loved my art class. My drawing teacher was amazing, and so I just kind of stuck with that, and I just kind of switched over majors. And it was community college. I just took all the art, ended up taking all the art classes. Never joined the police academy, and so I just did all that, and then and then I ended up going to Biola and did art there. But and then I was making, but then like I think going to a community college, like I met up with some old friends, and they were a bunch of artists, and it was like when street art was really taking off, like when Shepherd Ferry was really coming up, and people were wheat pasting everything, and that was really like my intro into like into my own like practice, because I felt like growing up watching Style Wars and Wild Style and in the graffiti scene from the East Coast, I was like, oh cool, but I didn't feel like I was never like into tagging or anything like that, or graph, and so I didn't feel like that. I feel like that was a very closed community that I couldn't access, you know. And so but through like wheat pasting, it became, now you had like this this photocopying, this ready-made that you could just like post up anywhere, and I feel like anybody could really could participate in that. And so
the deputy director at the Long Beach Museum was a vandal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But we never
hard-hitting journalism here.
Dun, dun, dun.
You only did it on your own fences.
No, yeah, exactly.
You only fucked up your mom's shit.
Mom, let me put this wheat paste on your car. But no, yeah, we would like hand out like we'd like photocopy flyers and like hand them out and stuff like that, and just do like guerrilla stuff. It was like kind of weird and just, I don't know, but it was fun. We just would, and that was like also how we kind of started curating shows. Or how I kind of like got an intro into curating was like our parents would go out of town, and then we would like take down all their artwork and then put up our own artwork in our house, whatever, and like throw these like art shows like at our parents' house, and like that was like kind of how we first started, like, and invite all our friends over and have these like art parties. And
that's funny.
It was like, and so it was like, oh, this is fun, like, and so
that sounds exactly like the kind of thing your parents would be most upset about,
right? Like, you did what?
But you took down everything, like, just all the trinkets. You just stashed them, and you probably didn't have like the curatorial or the art handling skills to put tape on and stuff. It's just like,
I just put it on the walls. I remember like one time, I think a friend of mine, he wanted to put like a bike rack and the thing, and so he was at his house, thank God, and he like taking a bike rack from a school, like one of the big long ones, and like drug it through his like front door.
Not like a car bike rack, like the ones that are, you just like,
yeah, you put your bike in and you bolt it to like the guy at school,
and not the fancy ones that are new now.
No,
like
like one of those. So he had like this huge metal thing that he like drug it through his entry hall, and like he had wood floors and just totally just like scratched the shit out of his floor. So anyways, but thank God it was his house and not my parents' house. My parents would have killed me. But it was fun. It was a great way to be kind of DIY and just kind of figuring it out. As a as a young artist, and trying to like figure out how this art, just if you don't have access to these galleries, like, you just do it yourself. So it's been always, that's kind of my mindset on everything. So yeah.
And then how was the decision? Was it a hard decision? Did you just get bored of making stuff? Like, when did you break free?
When I break from
from the burden of having to make
honestly,
things?
It was like it was a very like hard decision. It was like I remember it was like in 2007, and I was like, I'm going to like stop making art, and I'm going to just like create a stable of artists and pursue opening a space. And so it took me about, or was it 2010? Sorry. it took me like, no, it was 2010 because it took me like 3 years to do that, and to like create capital and
it checks out because that's when that scene was bumping.
Yeah. So it was like 2010, and that was like it was going to like flying. Like when I'd go on work trips, like I would just go do studio visits with other artists and just kind of see things that were around, and then just like collect names and then go visit them, and then invite them to be like, oh, I'm gonna open a gallery up in 2013. Like I put a hard date on it and just kind of set those goals and just kind of started just checking off the boxes. So yeah,
you know what I just realized is that that scene probably died when the what year was it that your rent went up by that much?
2018.
18? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, because around 2017, my rent, it's 2016, 2017, my rent went up like by $300.
Yeah.
Like my home rent, because it's not, and so I think what really changed that scene is just that metro line, that the blue line. Once they put that station right there, like, everything, you couldn't buy food for less than $10 anymore. Everything was like 15. It got pretty wild.
That dirt lot that's underneath La Cienega right there, or Jefferson. That was just like, that was dirt forever. And then now it's like, all these like bougie restaurants.
Yeah.
And just like,
and
like
ice cream that's like way too expensive. Yeah.
It's like, what? Like this used to be dirt, and now it's, and even that where where KLOS used to be, there was that radio station that was right there. That got leveled, and that became, I think like a 23-story high rise with like vacant businesses now, that are like offering, space for businesses to occupy, and yet they're still vacant.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, because who can afford that? They want to keep that market high. Well, I mean, there's pretty impressive stuff out there though. Like that's the like Culver Studios has like crazy like all of that area is all like film and tech people, so it's only gotten more and more like that, right? So right
there on Washington, all of that space is all tech and stuff.
But it's probably popular for that reason, because there is that train station. I remember I just would take it all the way to the pier and just like go hang out over there, which was really nice. I remember when they were putting it in, I've said this before, but I was like so excited. I was like, oh, they're putting a train station for us. I was like, no, it's not for us. Then I learned the hard truths of like that, because I mean, there's gentrification in Miami, but the scale of it is like ever present. I mean, it's hard to get away from it, know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember like when I started working in Santa Monica, I came back from New York. I didn't have a car. So I was going to school in La Mirada, so I would take the bus from La Mirada to Santa Monica and then get dropped off at downtown, and then take the bus from downtown LA to Santa Monica from there, because they didn't have the blue line stopped there. And so so I wouldn't be able to take it. So I was like, I can't wait till they put a train extension, there. And then they
can't wait till Javier has to move.
Right? Sorry, Javier.
No, it's all good.
But and then I had to like ride my skateboard like from like Bundy, because the bus would drop you off at Bundy and Olympic, and then I had to go to Bergamot. And then so
oh damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to like I'd bring my skateboard, and I'd like skateboard from there. But luckily, like Mark Moore, when I worked for him, like he lived in Orange, I think, at the time, and so he'd give me a ride back to La Mirada from there. So it was great because I was able to like pick his brain and just he's like, just use me as like an encyclopedia about the art world. He's been around for like 30 plus years, more than that. So
I like great. People like that, because it's like it's nice when people acknowledge that like we might not have some more anything else to really talk about, like, and it's just the best use of your time.
Oh, it is. It's amazing. It's like that. Me not having a car was just like the best educational tool ever, because I sat in the car. I get these rides from these people that were just these huge so instrumental in my career and in my art education, into like the real life of what the art world was, not in the context of like from school, so yeah.
And are you first generation? How many generations are you? I mean, I'm assuming you're not like a white guy from Michigan.
No.
Loya.
I'm like fourth generation.
So you're not a Spanish speaker.
No, not at all. My parents don't even speak Spanish. My mom was well, Loya comes from the Basque country.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and that's where my grandfather was from, and then my dad's mom was from Chihuahua, Mexico, and then my mom's mom was
So
from
you're
Madrid, and then
so wait, your dad's dad. Wait, who was the one from
the Basque,
the Basque?
my dad's dad.
Your dad's dad.
Yeah.
So he's a conquistador.
Yeah,
Essentially.
pretty much. So yeah, and then my grandma and he grew up. I can't remember the name of this. It's a copper mine town in Arizona that they both. I'm blanking on the name of it. It'll come to me. But anyways, that's where they were from. And then and my grandma's family came from Madrid, Spain, and then but everyone was born my grandma was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then grew up in Watts, and then my mom grew up in Compton,
Mhm.
and so and my dad grew up in Downey. So and they all worked in the aerospace industry. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was crazy.
Can I ask you a dumb question
Sure.
about Snoop Dogg? Is there like a bad part of LBC?
Long Beach has it's interesting because there's so much diversity there in the city where it's like you can go one block, 2 blocks this way, and it's like a really nice neighborhood. Then you go the next block, 1 block over, and it's not,
Okay.
and so it's so broken up. But yeah, I mean it has pockets. In North Long Beach, it's just
because I go to Long Beach and I'm like, I mean, I get that he likes to rep the neighborhood, but it doesn't seem as tough because I know he also talks about it being in the hood. So there are like really rough areas. Okay,
there are very.
It's not all Orange County-ish.
No. Long Beach has its own vibe, and so which I think would
is
make
that
Long Beach
Orange County?
No, it's
Long Beach.
It's LA County.
LA.
So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So it's got that like San Pedro reach.
Yeah.
It's like like a pair of testicles hanging off of LA.
Exactly. But no, I think the harbor is right there. And and
so
then
that's why it's still
and the 710 drops right there. So anyway, so that's so it's still LA County. Like the Orange County line is it's right there too, but it's a little bit
Are there bad neighborhoods in Orange County? Because the perception is that it's like ritzy, but not quite like Palisades.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pockets. I would say, there's I'm trying to think.
I just want a county that I can just diss on for being rich. No, I'm kidding. No, it really is interesting to me, especially always talking to people who are from here. Because like Pico Union, you know Josh Vasquez probably if you know Elmer. So he's from Pico Union, and like Pico Union is like a happening part of town. Kind of now. It's like it's still in the hip it's not quite. Gotten gentrified yet completely, like you can still, but it is one of those art buzz kind of areas, you know, like where like there are galleries and whatnot. So it's interesting to hear as because I mean it's also nice to have been here long enough to remember like the era of Culver City, right? Like LA is so interesting how it moves. One of the things that I know that Mario was saying was that the Bergamot was like really happening, and when I got here it was also just dying out, so it's interesting to think about the glory days of these places. I mean,
there's that great book what is it called, is it La La Land or LA Land, and it came out like in 2001, and it's all about the Chinatown scene, the LA art scene from there, and that's such a wonderful a book and a piece of LA history, there. And then it was interesting to watch it go from like Chinatown and then to in Bergamot, and then Culver. Then all the galleries moved from Bergamot to Culver City and occupying that space. And then now I guess it's West Hollywood. I guess is like the new
West Hollywood is. Oh yeah, I guess because actually that is what Mario was saying, because that's where Regen and all of those places are.
And then even on West Adams is like populating now with more galleries.
Really, West Adams? Okay.
Yeah, like that place on Washington and Adams.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because that's where like Delicious Pizza is.
Yeah.
So it's like it still has that like wherever there's like hipstery cool, but not like cringe hipstery, but like actually like cozy.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
So it's in there's an artist. Do you remember John Millay?
I'm not familiar.
He's a LA painter, abstract painter. I used to show with like Ace Projects and but anyways, but he's had a studio there for many years, you know. I remember visiting him, I think in like 2016, 2017, and he was like, "Oh yeah, watch." He's like, "There was the first coffee shop had moved in, you know, on that street," and he's like, "Watch." He's like, "It's just gonna go." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, you know, because I mean, it was pretty, you know, there's a lot of vacant buildings there, and just not, it didn't look like anything was gonna happen, and sure enough, you know, 3 or 4 years later, it's just booming.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean that's that's what people in Boyle Heights were protesting.
Oh, yeah.
They were protesting not the Starbucks that opened up, but like the small coffee shops.
Yeah.
It is crazy. It happens slower than you think.
Yeah.
But it does happen, and it's consistent. You know, like you just see it.
Yeah. I know.
And then like Suhiro just had to move from Little Tokyo.
Oh,
so people are worried that Little Tokyo is gonna like lose its like kind of Little Tokyo-ness.
Yeah.
Because like
I hadn't read that.
Generational like restaurant, or I don't know if they're generational, but like
sure,
they've staples of Little Tokyo are having to move because for similar reasons to why you had to close the space down.
Yeah.
So you had a pretty good run then. So you were from 2013 to 2018.
Yeah, and then I moved, and I was doing a couple pop-ups in Silver Lake. And my friend, right when I closed, she had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, like I'm renting a space on Rampart in Beverly, and and it has like a storefront, and then I'm using just the office in the back. But if you need a space, like you can use it, you know." And I was like, "Oh, great!" And I kind of reshaped the my business model where I was like looking at my sales numbers and was like, you know, like I'm selling everything online essentially. You know, I was just, you know, I'd send out, and then like, and so I'm like, why? And I've sold maybe 10 things from people who have walked in over my entire 5-year run that have walked in off the street and bought something. So I'm like, why am I here? You know, I realized that I'm just having this space for validation, you know, and just to have a space. And then, so anyway, so I kind of reshaped it where I just had the shows open for 2 weeks. I would rent the space for 2 weeks where I would just do the setup for a week and then do the opening and then leave it open for a week and then shut it down and then sell everything online after that. Like do a Shopify and do it that way. And that was working out great because my overhead reduced down from like, I think when I was leaving the space, it was like 3,500, and that wasn't including bills.
Wow.
So, and even the production of the shows. I mean, like
no, I mean the budget wise. So you had to sell stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just
I mean,
based on the overhead.
Just doing a show alone was like, you know, was easily over 10K. You know, every time we did a show. For like the length, we would do shows for I think what was it, 8 weeks? So it was like 2 months rent on that, and then shipping and everything else, installation. And you know, the opening, all those things, you know, flying the artists out, whatever expenses were in there. So it was at least $10,000 per show. But then I reduced my
and you were doing one a month.
It was like one every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Yeah. So it was just like constantly, just like you know,
dude.
like it was crazy. But reduced my overhead down to like I think it's like $600, you know, for a show, whatever, from 10K to 600.
And then you bought a Porsche.
Yeah. I was like, this is great. So, and then then I applied to the museum because I was like doing that kind of part-time, and there was a part-time position opened up at the museum. And so I was like, oh, I'll apply to that. And then I can do this gallery thing on this, you know, because I was essentially working from home, and I had my first son. So he was like brand new. And so I was like, oh, I can just be home with him, and then I can work from home and then do the, you know, kind of manage both. And then, and then the museum actually were like, what do you think? But they were opening up their downtown campus, which they hadn't announced yet, but they were like, I went in for an interview and like, actually, we think you might be better. We need somebody to help activate this new space that we're getting. And it's in downtown Long Beach. And we think with your experience with your gallery, you can help us, you know, do that. So I was like, sure. So I took the job at the museum, but then I had to put the gallery aside, you know, and I was like, that's fine.
But I mean, what I'm getting here is that your credentials for the Long Beach Museum are pretty, you know, something happens to me like an idiot. Once I meet somebody that has a job that used to seem impressive, I'm like, oh, it's easy to get because Paul does it. But then I'm like, now I'm hearing and I'm like, oh, you ate shit for like 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's just interesting because too,
which is more stressful? I would imagine the gallery, like the $10,000 shows were more stressful than the nonprofit, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, But there comes like a lot of, I think that there comes with a lot of responsibility with like the shows that we put on, and doing that. It's just like, it's because, you're just, when you're doing the gallery and the commercial side of it, it's just like, you're just selling product, essentially, to simplify it. But, along with ideas, but with the museum, it's like, you have to like, think about how this is going to benefit the museum. There's all these other aspects and different components that go into putting a show together. So,
but you're not going to be showing Piss Christ anytime soon, right? So
what if I could? It's amazing. So, but yeah, no, it's been wonderful to be there. And, but yeah, I think it's interesting because I've had like, I've been doing my job for like 20 years now, 20 plus
man.
job, being in the art world and just kind of learning. And from the time I stepped foot into a gallery and deciding that this is what I wanted to do, it's been like, almost like 20 plus years. So it's like,
that sounds amazing, but it also sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
As someone who's been doing this for just a little while and doesn't even install shows, just like as people come over to talk to him about their experience, I'm like, God damn. I mean, this scene it's great, and there's a lot of really interesting and good people, but it's like it's exhausting just geographically, like you came from Long Beach to do this.
Yeah, it's great. It's like I left at like 3:30, whatever.
Oh, wow,
I was like, okay,
wow.
like, I mean, just to I got a coffee and stuff before, so I was like, I got here a little early, but it's fine. I think my commuting from like La Mirada to Santa Monica and just kind of making LA the size of your, like really like from my commuting so many years, because I spent 13 years commuting from Long Beach to Santa Monica, just sitting on the 405, just in that grind. Like every day. And before podcasts were around really. I'm just sitting there listening to like Mark and Brian from KLOS and like just anything to like, it was brutal. But I mean, it's good, but it's been great.
Well, I mean, I literally have a fight with myself every time there's a show to go to about like staying in or going. And like that in and of itself is like, I mean, not that I'm sure New York has its own like problems. Not that I know what that experience is like, but just like you have to want it. You have to want to be involved in this scene, and you have to be able to like it despite the things you don't like about it. Because I'm sure the list is long for anybody that participates in any kind of scene, right? Like you have your like your things where you're like constantly like, do I care enough? And you're like, fuck, I do.
It's who you want to support, and being there and just and showing up for, it was just like, but it's just, but there's no like, there's not like a centralized, like, New York has the Lower East Side and Chelsea, and they would have like Thursday nights was like the art walk and everything would open on that one night. So you could hit all the things, you know? Whereas LA, like there's nothing like that, I mean, Saturdays maybe, but not really. Not really. Not anymore.
And you can't really hit multiple things at once. Yeah. So it's crazy, but I wanted to get, unless you had a thought.
No, go.
I wanted to, so then you're talking about the, how you go about the, like, you've mentioned that like the curatorial practice is a little bit different from the gallery to the museum. So you have addressed the fact that it's like educational and whatnot, but like, do you have like a core thing that you as a curator, like, not to say philosophy, but like, but something in the realm of that, after I gave the show at the Hammer shit, like, do you have a curatorial philosophy? But do you, is there like what is the main drive of your interest? Because it seems like, especially if I'm going off of like Ordinary People and things like that, you do have like, you are uniquely from this area, right? Like, do you work with artists from other places? Do you have interests in that? Like, or is the Long Beach Museum mostly local, historical kind of perspectives and dialogues?
Mostly it's Southern California. Like,
so in general.
We kind of go across that. And I've been trying to like really integrate, Long Beach into the fabric of the LA art scene. And
which I think is like important because
because it's like, we're people, and one of the things when being from Long Beach and working in LA, in my career was like, people like, oh, you live around here, around Santa Monica or in LA, and I was like, oh no, I live in Long Beach. It's like, oh, that place. I've heard of that place,
Yeah.
it's like this other, and I was like, and so I was also like, oh, that's interesting. And so I would also, my drive has been like, oh, making sure like to integrate it more, and bring in LA artists to Long Beach. And so people can come to Long Beach and see, and also like know that Long Beach is part of LA County. Like, it's just down the 710.
It's
but
actually a lot easier to get to than people think, especially during the hours that you would go see art.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we have a beautiful restaurant that's on campus too. So you can come and have lunch, and make kind of a day of it. There's tons of things to do in Long Beach. So, but I think like generally, like I like to, when I think about shows, I think about shows like and how they can connect to like everybody, how like it's not just for a specific audience, or to a specific demographic. It's like everybody can connect with it. My dad was my dad's a microbiologist, and comes from the science world, and so for him to understand what I was doing was like kind of abstract. Like, you want to do what? And I was like, and I was like, when I was like practicing art, I'd be like laying on the ground in the driveway, like smoking a cigarette, and like looking at a painting, like upside down. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, as he comes home with his like tie on, his little badge from his laboratory, and I was like, I'm making art, Dad, and he's like, whatever, dude. Like, so
did you ever have a breakthrough moment with him?
Yeah, no, we did. When I lived in New York, he came and I had to like put together a show, and so he was like helping do the setup and just kind of like got it. He was like, oh, this is what you want to do, and I was like, cool, like you get it. And so he just saw, the possibilities of that, and seeing me in my environment, and just like and how I was, my mind was just like thriving, that he was like, oh, this is what you want to do. So so that was really cool. But
how old were you when that happened? How long did you have to wait?
Gosh, I think I was like 22, and I think
that's not too bad.
Not too bad, but I was still like, I mean, that was like from
we're
like
lucky like that.
Yeah, it's like 18 till 22. It took about like 4 years. But you still, my parents are always like very supportive of my interest in art, especially my mom and stuff. So, but so with that, I always think about my parents and just like how would they connect with this show? Is it something that is accessible for them? Like, will they get the gist of it? And dealing also, I think one of the first shows I did at the museum was finding connecting points. Like what was like Leroy Granis, who was a photographer from Palos Verdes and in Hermosa Beach, and he was a part of the Palos Verdes Surf Club. But he shows with like MMB Gallery, and does all these like wonderful photos from the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s of like the surf culture, But in his son lives like right in San Pedro still,
Oh, wow.
And so and so there's like all these. There's like actually a photo that we dug up for that show of like the Palos Verdes Surf Club, like sitting in front, like just down the beach from the museum, with all their surfboards when there were waves in Long Beach, like in the harbor right there. So anyway, so I like to like
wait, there aren't waves in Long Beach anymore?
No, there's a break wall.
Oh,
so there's a break because of the tanker ships that come in.
Oh, okay.
So there's that. So they made a break wall. I forgot what year. There's always been like, I forgot what year they built that, but they're always trying to get signatures to like tear down the break wall. You always hear rumors they're gonna take the break down. There's gonna be waves again in Long Beach, But there's like islands in Long Beach, like in that harbor, that are actually like they're like faux islands that are actually oil drills.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not familiar. But
okay.
I mean,
when you come, you'll see them. They're literally right outside of the museum.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
But they're close. When I was little, I was like, oh, people live on that island. 'Cause it looks like a hotel.
Yeah.
But it's really just a huge tower. That's a thing. But yeah. And so, but anyway, so thinking about those type of things, like how can the general audience, that if somebody who's who's visiting the museum for the first time, like how are they can they connect with the show, and can they connect with the narrative of the exhibition? So yeah.
And then just a quick question about like anything that people don't know about the art market when you were running running an art gallery like that, because it sounds like just based on location, it sounds like you were doing pretty good, especially if your budgets are 10 grand, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay. I was like just skimming by. I wasn't making.
I don't imagine you were making crazy profit, but you were. But like what kind of what price point were you guys selling stuff at?
I think like
15K, or is that
no? I mean, sometimes. I mean, depending on
scale,
on the scale of it. But mostly like, everything would start. I wanted to make it accessible, so
you've always had that ethos.
Yeah. So it's always been like like making. Because I was just I started collecting art when I was in my early 20s,
Mm.
just like I just was like, oh, like, I because I worked in the galleries, be like, oh, I want to buy this, and they'd put me like on payment plans or something like that, to buy. So I started collecting young, and so I just kind of knew the power of that and how you could how it's important for as a collector to participate in the ecosystem of the art world, and like supporting artists and what that means and how far that one purchase can go,
Yeah, yeah.
and so
Without it, there is ultimately no infrastructure.
exactly, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I always wanted to like implement that within the foundation of the gallery. So yeah,
Well,
so
it's cool that you could go to like Blum and Poe and then next door,
Yeah.
or just down the way, just get something for much
yeah,
less. Yeah,
exactly. So it was like, and I mean, it was still within. I understood like like what was little bit of a stretch, where it made it special to buy. Where
Yeah,
like
yeah,
really
yeah.
it was like $800 to like $900 was like you're like, I can. I can kind of like drain my savings, whatever, to buy
Yeah.
this, but then I have this like really cool thing,
Yeah.
where it wasn't like something where like I remember it was like a gallery down the way that was selling like prints for like $25, and it's like there isn't
It
that.
devalues it. Yeah, yeah. To
it's
some
not-
degree. Yeah, yeah.
So it was just like it's a different thing, and so so anyway, so that was what we did. So but it was like it was
Nice.
anywhere from like 900 to like I think we had pieces that were like $14,000 to $15,000, and so
Yeah.
and we would take those. We would do Miami. We did like Pulse Art Fair when
Oh,
that was
nice.
like
Yeah, yeah.
a popular fair.
It's not. It's defunct now.
I don't know if it's even around anymore. I don't think so.
No, I remember it, but
Yeah.
I like because I used to live out there.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Because they had a really great director, Helen Toomer, who runs.
It's not a tumor.
Yeah.
Unfortunate
Yeah.
kid rat joking.
Right.
I would just do that to her every day if I was her classmate.
She runs I think she runs the New York Photography Fair now. But brilliant, wonderful
I'm
woman.
burning bridges before I meet people.
Right? Don't get in photography. Don't apply to her fair. So, but no, but she's great, and so it was really strong when under her directorship, and
Yeah.
and so we did that fair. So we'd bring like the expensive things there, and so and when I worked for Peter Fetterman, that was interesting because we had he did so many fairs that I learned how to like cut how to cut costs on doing the fairs. So how to get like the cheapest booth and negotiate lights, and because they just nickel and dime everything out of you, so yeah.
Are they? Do fairs tend to be that profitable? I mean, you would think that they are, but
think so.
Really.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know I don't know the.
Did you have like sales success at those events?
I broke even, so
You
I
broke
guess
even.
yes. So,
But you got
yeah.
exposure,
Yeah.
so then it ends up paying off like that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it's hard to imagine. It's such a non-conducive, like
Yeah.
like booths are not conducive to art viewing,
No.
right? Like especially the like Basel itself, the convention center,
Yeah.
like it's exhausting.
It's so
dude.
exhausting. It's
Like, you go to a museum and you get tired, and then you go to Basel and you're like, oh my god, like art, like looking at art is tiring.
it is.
Even
and that much art, you're just like, whoa, like your brain just like, you feel so drained. And when we go with the museum, we'll go to, sometimes we'll usually do Basel in one day, and that's just that
Yeah.
day. But some days we'll do two fairs, and that's really brutal.
the problem is that it's 2 days, it's 3 days back to back,
Mhm.
and then like like I know people that just didn't sleep.
Yeah.
I'm like no, but the traffic at this point to get into South Beach is so bad.
Yeah.
Like it went to Miami Beach, not South Beach.
Yeah.
Is so bad that like I went last year and I was just like, I don't want to go, like I
Yeah.
don't want to drive down there again, because
No.
it's like, I don't know, Miami just doesn't have the infrastructure for the traffic that it's grown in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, going down Collins is just like by
Yeah.
Thursday night, like you can't even move.
And Brickell is
Yeah.
insane too.
Mhm.
Brickell used to be nothing, dude. Like
That's wild.
it used to be like there. It was crazy. There's like all this skyline, near Tobacco Road and all of that.
Yeah.
Like, which is like, if you had it was happening when I was living there, but then I left for 10 years and I came back and I'm like,
Wow.
oh my shit, oh my god, And my favorite joke to tell while I was over there, which everyone probably is annoyed with, is that the Brickell's going to make a really nice coral reef eventually, because
Right.
it's like they're developing all this stuff and it's just sinking.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild.
That's what. Yeah, it is crazy. It'd be interesting for you to have. You hope you get Mario on the show.
Vasquez?
No, Mario. Ybarra Jr.
Oh yeah.
Because he, he and I were having an interesting conversation about when he would go to Basel, but like in 2001,
Mhm.
And really going there early when
Yeah.
like Basel was like, was just an infant.
That's before I really like cared about art at all.
So he's like, yeah, like we were, me and I forgot who it was, like his buddy were like the only guys, the only Chicano artists like out there, It's just like so. It's interesting. So I'm interested to hear his take on that.
No,
swap stories.
And as it gets bigger and bigger, it becomes more of a celebrity
thing.
Yeah. So it's
the parties are wild. I mean, it's just like I remember going to like a couple parties where it was like, you had to go into this hotel and like through this back door and then like down a set of stairs, and then there was like another like there's like a huge mob of people that were just like wait, like I don't even know how they were chosen to go to this party, but then like you go down, then it's like a vacant theater, and you're like, what? Like, how does this exist? And how did this party even happen? Like, you're like, I'm like, how did you hear about this party? Just my friend who like invited me to go to this thing. He's like, oh, so and so, and I don't know, but everyone's just like, just kind of trying to get their way into some type of function there. It's kind of crazy.
I remember when I was a kid, like Fat Joe was doing an interview on MTV. I know, right? and he was saying, like, they were talking about Miami, and he was like, nah, we grew up in poverty. This is nothing like that. And I was like, and then that's when I was like, yes, that is probably very correct.
Yeah.
Because like everybody is like, there is something weird about that place. It's just like, it is like, there are neighborhoods that are not great,
right.
and there are really, really poor people, but I don't think I get the feeling like when I'm out here in LA that even today there's like much more poverty, I mean, like, especially, just now walking down the streets. Is it worse? Like, has LA gotten like harder, do you think, for people to like survive in? So
absolutely. I mean, even the time that it's just, it's gotten a lot worse.
So it's worse than the 90s, which is like considered like the worst. I mean, not in terms of gang violence, but in terms of like poverty.
I can't really speak to that because I was like, I was so young at that time. At that time I wasn't coming up here the way I am now. And experiencing it. So, but yeah, I mean, but from the time when I've been commuting to LA, it's gotten like far worse.
Miami today does not have that.
Really?
Over here. Yeah. That's, in fact, it's awful to say, but one of the things that I'm excited to go on vacation for is just take a break from like, being in a city that has so much of that, like, and just like, it's like, it really does wear on you. I think that is part of the other thing that like, you have to drive far, and then like I'm trying to figure out why it is that I want to go on vacation from LA. I don't want to leave. I love the city, but there is something about it that's just kind of like wearing on you,
You moved to Culver City first? That was your first spot?
Culver City, I think the other thing is that I'm so close to the highway. That like I can feel like the air is like not the best, Like, so when I was in Culver City, I don't think I felt as like, it feels like it's sunnier over there for some reason. Yeah,
it's it's like a mini suburb type of thing. Yeah, that's a nice little vibe to it.
Yeah. So. I mean, but then that also gets tired. But that's very similar to Miami, I think, which is very anyway, we're just talking geography now. Do you have anything that you wanna that I maybe haven't thought of?
Gosh.
Anything that is on your mind that you want to say while you still have a chance? As I'm closing the door on your platform.
Time to go, Paul. Your time is up.
Well, we've been talking for like an hour and 18.
Really?
So, yeah. Usually I ask that question around an hour.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good give having people, a good vibe.
Yeah, give people an option to say something if they want, or just be like, "Oh, I'm covered it."
I mean, you've asked some really great questions, so it's been fun chatting with you. It just came off very easy. But I mean, I guess just come and see the show at Ordinary People. I think it's like it's a really fantastic exhibition, and I think it's a wonderful, and the title comes from Angela Davis's book, "Freedom is a Constant Struggle," which was the impetus of the whole show, which was like, ordinary people taking a critical stance amongst their reality. And I thought that was like a beautiful sentiment, you know, and 'cause I was thinking about the title for the show for a very long time. It was called something else. I can't remember the original title, but it was,
he remembers, he just doesn't want to say
it was like, and it had this title for like a really long time. And then it was like, God, I got to think of something. And I was rereading, I was trying to find a quote to put on the wall, you know, from her, from Dr. Davis. And when I reread, I had highlighted that and reread ordinary people taking a critical stance. And I was like, whoa, like that's, you know, I love the power of that. And just like, and especially speaking to the organizations that were participating, I was like, each one of these organizations, like they've each have such a commitment to their community, you know, and what they're doing, and just like putting their community first above what them, but then using art as a vehicle to do that, which I think is a beautiful sentiment, like, you know, and I think it just speaks to the power of art and what we can do with it. And that's not just like painting on a canvas, you know, it's not these traditional ways of creating art, that you can do so much more with it, especially with like Crenshaw Dairy Mart using it as an activism platform, you know, and doing that, and what they're doing with helping change, you know, hoping to strive forward and changing legislation and such. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it ties back, like, because you're not dumbing down the shows. You're making them accessible, which is something that I respect. You know, because I feel like that's the difference between your wall text and the Hammer Show. No, because like it's and then that's the other thing that I find interesting about even just the Made in LA show, going back to the whole thing of it being a survey of Los Angeles. There are so many artists that are not from here, and they don't necessarily have like that kind of critical discipline in terms of socially conscious, you know, like, or maybe don't even know who Angela Davis is, right? And it's interesting. Like, that's what's interesting about that show. It accounts for that, which I respect. But I feel like people from LA tend to have a very, very particular experience of the city, that it's almost like you have to be from somewhere else to make art here and not talk about things that are social, right? Like it's because it's a fucking disaster. I mean, it's a beautiful disaster, but it really is, you know, like it's insane. Yeah. You know, like, and part of that insanity is why it's so great to live here. It's kind of like Times Square in the 70s kind of vibe, you know, but like, it's like, hey, something's not right. And then I think maybe out of that comes like people taking care of each other. That thing about, you were talking about community, because there are like, well, as horrifying as some of the stuff that happens out here is, like, there's also mutual aid groups that I don't see anywhere else. Like, I mean, not to dig on Cubans, but but they would definitely, they're definitely interested in supporting people that come, like, you know, refugiados that come that are just fresh off the boat, like, and stuff like that. But the experience is different here. You know, like the politics are different for very different reasons. Like, you know, like Cubans got access to the country. You guys are kind of getting pushed out. You know, like Mexicans are getting pushed out of their own land, right? So it's an interesting thing. But over here, like, yeah, man, just like I've not I don't know if that shit happens in New York the same way, but that like I know that in the Midwest it happens because of the tradition of like labor. Oh, right. Yeah. You know, like in places like Detroit, there's a lot of mutual aid stuff, but yeah, it is an interesting city. Yeah. So yeah, guys, definitely go check out the show. I'm going to try to wait. It's up until when?
January 14th.
Oh, okay. I got time to put out.
For sure. Put this out. Yeah, I'll be good. And then that last weekend that the show's up, Crenshaw Dairy Mart will be doing 2 performances there. Okay. So, yeah, Patrice Colors will be performing Stained on the 14th, and then Jailbed Drop will be performed. Jailbed Drop will be performed on January 13th, along with a panel discussion after that. So cool. Well, and then you can follow the museum at lbma.org, at lbma at lbma is the handle on Instagram, and you can follow there for programming details and things like that, because we'll be doing talks, you know, throughout the run. That you
host, right? Yeah,
that I host. Yeah, that I take it to sit down and talk with the artists, which is always fun to do, and just kind of like,
when I saw you doing that, I was like, okay, future guest knows how to talk.
It's funny, you know, it's just like I enjoy. I wanted to kind of like, because you have these wonderful sit downs and these meets with these artists and studio visits, and I really wanted to bring that kind of sentiment, a casual conversation to camera, and bring that for the audience to be a part of.
Trust me, bro. I relate and I support it. You know, we need an army of us. We need all the podcasts in the world.
How many podcasts have you done now?
I'm number 200 is coming out in 3 weeks.
Cool.
So,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Like I said, I really enjoy watching your show. I watch it and listen to it on the way home.
Thank you.
And so I really appreciate what you're doing and the guests that you're bringing on. I think it's a very diverse and just wonderful array of LA people. You know, is it all LA people that you bring on?
No, I mean, I try to talk to people outside of the LA scene.
Okay.
But I mean, like the majority of people, just because of proximity, you know. But I do try to get referrals from people from other towns. You know, like because I also am curious about how other cities do the scene. But LA is also a really important place. You know, like I'm getting to the point where I'm like, well, I can't buy property here, so but I still want to like keep a foot here, you know, like until I can't afford to live here, you know, because it is expensive. I'm rent controlled, so I'm like, oh, nice. Until that shit falters, I'm in LA, you know.
But I think it's interesting because I think you can cover like I think our age group and the years that we came up in the art world is a very interesting time where we've seen such change. And a shift in things. And I think being able to bring the guests on that you are speaking to that, you know, and I think it's wonderful to kind of have that that oral history that you're creating. So,
thank you. That's very good compliment from a very qualified individual.
Thank you.
So I will take that to heart. Cool. And when I have those moments of self-doubt, I'll be like, people are listening.
They are. Absolutely. So
well, cool. And then your personal one is if you want to see this gentleman in
running
marathon attire with your cute nephews.
Those are my kid. My nephews. So I'm just at Paul Loya. I tried to post art stuff on there, but mostly it's my family, which is interesting. But and running. So my other love.
My dyslexic brain has such a hard time not making your the L from your Paul and Paul. Loya, right? like no, you know how like sometimes with screen names you don't really read them until you read them and you're like, oh shit,
there's two L's. I know when I was making art and I was like signing, I was like, oh, this is so cool because it's all the two L's like stand up, and I was like, this is contextually this is compositionally wise, this is wonderful, you know. And so but now it's just like it's kind of followed me around. So but yeah, well, cool. Thank you for having me. Man.
No problem, man. And we'll be back next week with another guest with another topic that may or may not be art related.
Cool.